Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa will host German Chancellor Olaf Scholz at the Union Buildings in Pretoria today. Scholz is on his first official visit to South Africa, and South Africa is the final leg of Scholz's tour to 3 African nations after trips to Senegal and Niger.
Well, we are coming to you live from the Union Buildings, where President Cyril Ramaphosa will be hosting his counterpart from Germany, Olaf Scholz. Of course, we know that the German Chancellor is on his final leg in Africa. He started in Senegal and then he went to Niger, and of course he is here now in South Africa, where really they'll be talking about a range of issues, from trade issues to continental issues and of course the international issues. We know that the situation, for example, in Ukraine has necessitated that countries look for alternative sources of energy, particularly when it relates to gas. You remember the issue of Russia and the relations with Germany. But of course, before we can even talk about all of those things, just down the road from where we are, there are South African miners who are not happy with what has been happening to them. So they slept here and they have just taken their complaints to the doorstep of the president. And in fact, I think they want to highlight this for the all world to see that they are not happy with some of the things that are happening. But of course, that is the nature of our democracy. But I'm not alone, as you will be well aware, here at the Union Buildings. I'm with my colleague, the international editor at the SABC, Sophie Mokoena, who we will be looking at this story together and of course exploring some of the issues that will come out from this story. Ms. Mokoena, this is a very important visit, as you and I have been speaking about this at some point. Perhaps, what do you think will be the highlight of his South African leg?
I think high on the agenda will be multilateral challenges around the world. You know that the war in Ukraine has affected all countries around the world, particularly when you look at food security. You know that particularly the sub-Sahara region or the African continent, we do import a lot of grain from Ukraine. You also have countries that have strong relations with Russia, and some countries are also exporting lots of products from Russia. South Africa, in this case, a friend to Russia. You know, we are part of the BRICS nations, and therefore you also have, on the other hand, Germany, that is relying on Russia in terms of supply of gas and oil. And you know that the European Union has taken a decision to impose sanctions against Russia. And Germany, being part of the European Union, they will also have to support the decision taken by the regional organization, the European Union. But we know that Germany is having challenges. It has got challenges because they do get oil and gas from Russia, and therefore they cannot all of a sudden stop that what they import from Russia. So I think that issue is going to feature high on the agenda. You know that Germany is currently the chair of the G7. You know that the head of government of Germany has invited President Cyril Ramaphosa to attend the G7 meeting. It's not clear yet whether the president will be going to the G7 summit. There are pressing issues here in South Africa. You've just pointed out the mine workers who are outside there at the lawns of the Union Buildings. It is an election year or national conference of the ANC. There's a lot internally. But also we know that the president is going to Malabo. Yeah. And therefore it's not clear yet whether he will be attending that G7 meeting.
Yes, I think you've I think laid out quite clearly some of the international issues that will be of interest, but also Germany being a powerhouse economically, and of course the biggest investor in this country. I mean, you know that 600 companies do business from Germany here, and they employ about 100,000 people. So how important will that aspect be for this visit?
It is very important. You are aware that since COVID-19, the economy of South Africa has been very, very sluggish. We've been battling to revive the economy. You know, this building back better, we are really struggling. And I think when you ask the president, I remember when the president attended a meeting in France, France-Africa Summit, our colleagues, Rosie, asked him, what is, you know, what if he can talk about the issue that is really, you know, troubling the president, yes, and bothering the president, yeah, where, you know, what keeps him awake? It is the issue of the economy and the issue of unemployment. And therefore, it is very critical for the two leaders to discuss trade and investment. We know that in terms of volume, the trade between South Africa and Germany stands at 266 billion, but of course skewed in favor of Germany.
And South Africa seems to be quite battling at the moment in terms of the low growth, the unemployment, unhappiness, quite a range of issues, service delivery, governance, and all those issues really that affect our country. So what sort of lessons do you think a country like ours can learn from a powerhouse like Germany?
I think it is the professionalism in terms of governance, looking at what Germany has done since World War II, how the country has developed itself. And as we speak, Germany is one of the powerhouse in the European Union community. And therefore, I think South Africa can learn a lot, because much as we talk about 27 years of democracy, we are still in the process of rebuilding South Africa. We know that before 1994, the sanctions were imposed on South Africa. And when the current ruling party or governing party took over, the country was literally bankrupt, and there was a recovery. But unfortunately, during that economic crisis, yeah, and COVID-19, now the war in Ukraine, these are the challenges that we are battling with. And I think South Africa can learn a lot from Germany.
You know, the German political system is quite an interesting one. It's basically about coalitions. I mean, we are in a coalition which is run by, I think, the Social Democrats, of course, with the Greens and others. Having replaced someone who was more towards the center-right, how important is this in the shift in terms of what Germany wants to achieve as a country?
I think this is quite important. I think there has been a view that the right-wing phenomena is rising around the world. And what happened in Germany brought hope that there is pushback. You saw what happened in Australia recently. The same thing happened, where you have a socialist type of a leader who was elected to be head of government. Maybe even the US. Even the US, you have someone who's more liberal, contrary to Donald Trump, who was seen as more right-leaning. And therefore, South Africa can learn a lot from Germany in terms of system of government as well. You know that as we speak, in different municipalities and metros in particular, you have coalition governments. And therefore, I think South Africa can learn a lot from Germany. How do you manage different interests in the interest of your nation?
Because I'm raising this, Sophie, because we have seen, as you've indicated, in the municipalities where there's co-governance or coalitions, basically service delivery comes to a standstill in this country. Yet you have a country like Germany, it doesn't matter, they are still on top of their game.
That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say we can learn the system of government in Germany. Because clearly when you look at the results of the local government election, it speaks to the scenario that in the coming years we are likely to have a coalition government at the national level. I cannot say the coming elections or the one that will follow this coming election in 2024, but at some point in time we may find ourselves in a coalition government. And I think interacting with countries that have traveled this road will assist us also to understand and to learn better to manage if there are such changes.
Yeah, I think one of the problems perhaps that gets raised by people is that, yes, learning, we never stop learning. But in our case, we keep learning, but we don't seem to learn. I mean, something as basic, Sophie, as fixing the pothole. You don't have to go to school to learn afresh. So that could be easily learned. But somehow you'd have people who are charged with the responsibility, but they still don't do it. At what point do we really get to overcome this?
This reminds me of recently the big story within the Department of Transport, where we were told that the machine that is used to print out licenses had to be taken to Germany for repairs because it was broken. And I think we can learn a lot from Germany in terms of skills and development, but also the IT sector. These are the issues that I think we should focus on, because we live in a different age completely. When you look at the impact of COVID-19, it is not business as usual. And I think when countries around the world engage each other, we can be able to address the challenges that we are facing. But as you pointed out earlier on, the president is not only hosting the head of government from Germany. We also have the uninvited guests down there at the union buildings, the lawns of the union buildings, the workers who are here to also send their message to the president, because you'd recall that on the 1st of May during the Workers' Day, they pointed out to the president their challenges, and the president promised then that he will intervene, and he did ask the Minister of Minerals and Energy to intervene. We even had that during a heated meeting with the company, he even threatened to take the license. And let's perhaps hear from let's hear what's happening.
Yes, down there. Nothando Mokadulela will assist.